harvest. So this is the power of mushrooms. Now, here we're growing them in plastic bags, clear polyethylene bags, I believe. We can grow them in black garbage bags also, or grocery bags. We can grow them in plastic bottles. We can grow them in plastic buckets. We can reuse cardboard boxes. Whatever you can start to think, how can I make a mushroom garden? It is possible. But we're always fighting contamination. So after the gardens fruit a lot, eventually they become contaminated. Eventually their immune system gives up, and this is the beginnings of soil. So I break that up, I add it to my gardens, and it helps to retain moisture in the gardens, okay? So if you have a field of maize growing, the field of maize that has mushroom gardens broken up around all the plants is going to do better than the field of maize that does not, for a fact. Because it's generating more soil, it's keeping water from evaporating, and eventually it's giving nutrients to the plants that it wouldn't otherwise have. So we turn banana leaves and sawdust into soil faster using mushrooms. All the while we were getting food before we even started the soil generation process. Does anybody have any questions so far? No?
Anyone with a question?
Anybody have a question? There's no bad questions. Yes? Say that
Pardon? Why is it doing what?
Turning the color. Oh, great question. So oyster mushrooms can be a variety of different colors. Oyster mushrooms can be white, they can be blue, they can be pink, they can be yellow, they can be gray. All depends on what starting genetics you have, basically the cultures that you start with, and also how cold it gets. So if it gets very cold, sometimes the white mushrooms will turn dark blue or gray. And if it's warmer, they'll be lighter in color. And sometimes if it's a pink or yellow oyster, they'll just be pink or yellow, no matter what. Although those like warm weather more so. Any other questions? How long does it take? So it takes about a month to produce this. And then I make a cut. And then 2 weeks later from the cut, I start to see pins emerging from the garden like this. And then within 3 years, I'm ready to harvest a garden that looks like this one right here. So once I make the cut, it may be 2 weeks before I see something, but then once I see the pins, then it's only a matter of days. So mushrooms are incredible like that. They grow much faster than vegetables. Any other questions? Yes. Say that again louder. Oh, the purpose of the smoke. Yes. So, you don't need electricity to grow mushrooms, but it does help. So we have machines in here that are generating fog. Okay, and so what they're doing is they're not boiling the water. They're vibrating the water with a little piece of metal. It's vibrating it so quickly that it turns it into a cloud, essentially. So it uses a small amount of electricity and a small amount of water, and we use fans to blow the fog into the room. That way we don't have to constantly water the walls and the floor. We just use a small amount of water to feed the mushrooms. But it's not necessary for mushroom growing, it just helps. So when it's raining outside a lot during the rainy season, we don't even have these machines on at all. It's humid enough in here, it's humid enough outside that the mushrooms will naturally grow by just making a cut and then waiting. And it's nice and humid in here, they will grow. They can grow in your kitchen, they can grow in your bathroom. There's a lot of people who grow mushrooms in small homes, okay? They don't have a big operation. They just grow a few at a time. And they cut it, and maybe they missed it with water a few times a day, but that's it. That's all it takes. Once you have the garden looking like this, the potential for growing mushrooms is tremendous, and it is very possible to do. The hard part is making a garden that looks this good, without it being green, without it being any other color. And so it's when becoming a mushroom scientist is really helpful. Well, you don't need to be a scientist. I taught myself how to grow mushrooms using just the internet, okay? I watched YouTube, I read articles on started 6 years ago, and now I teach other people how to do the same. You can learn it all through books. You can learn it all through the internet. You just have to know how to ask the right questions. But it does help to have a mentor. And so that's why Josephine at Eco-Agric Uganda here, she's one of my huge inspirations. She's a tremendous source of knowledge, and she has made many mistakes over the years that have taught us how we can make hundreds of these gardens without them being contaminated, okay? And even if they are contaminated, like this one has a little bit of green, that is gonna become beautiful soil at some point. It's gonna be much more beautiful than if we never added it to our garden, and that is a fact. Now, the mushroom is fighting this contamination with the immune system, just like we do. When we get sick, we cough up mucus, right? The mushrooms kind of do something similar. It produces this yellow material called exudate. And so what it's doing is it's fighting off that green mold. And eventually it might even overtake it completely. So we can cut this side of the garden instead and still get a harvest or two. And then we add it to the garden. Any questions so far? Well, yeah, feel free to take a look around. If you have any questions, please. Yeah. This is how it's done. All using waste materials, okay? Sometimes you can grow them in buckets, you can grow them in bread bags, plastic bottles, plastic buckets. Sometimes you don't have these bags. You need to figure out, how do we make it work? You use a bucket. You use one of these, whatever it may be.
So some mushroom?
Yes, this is you can see all the mycelium in here. It'd be better to have it covered, so that way it doesn't dry out so easily. That's why we like to have it completely sealed, so all the water stays inside. That way when we make a cut, the water it won't dry off. If I were to just tear this plastic open like this, it would start to fruit from the edges that were closest to the plastic. All of the exposed material would be too dry, and it would look like this. So if this fruits again, it's gonna do it out of the sides where all the moisture is being trapped. Exactly. So yeah, any questions so far? Thank you all for coming, we deeply appreciate it. It's very possible to be a mushroom farmer. You just have to study hard, and you have to be willing to make a lot of mistakes, because you're going to get contamination, you're going to fail, but failure is part of the program, okay? And it's not a failure, it's always a lesson learned. If a block turns completely green, I'm going to generate beautiful soil for my vegetable garden. So then we try again. We do a longer cook in the barrel. We find the right amount of water we add to our substrate. We make sure that the grain we use is perfectly white, and when we break it apart, it smells like fresh mushrooms. If it smells sour, even though you've spent all this time making it, you can't use it, okay? You want it to smell like good, fresh mushrooms at every stage, and you want every stage to be clean and white looking. You use your eyes to determine if it's clean or not. That's the beautiful thing about mushrooms. You don't have to guess, like, oh, is it secretly contaminated? You'll see the color change. So you can use very simple techniques to determine, is it ready, yes or no? This one, that is contamination, okay. So we can either wait for it to overgrow it, or we can cut it here. Well, really, it would probably be best if we just broke it up and added it to our gardens. Because green mold can spread, right? And now all of these mushrooms are fighting off, you know, it's very dirty in here, right? There's dust floating around, there's dirt, but that's okay. because the mushrooms have an immune system at this point. If I took a petri dish and I opened it up in here, the whole thing would turn green and pink and black because there's so much stuff floating around. But the reason why this doesn't turn is because the immune system of the mushroom is at work, okay? And the mushrooms help our immune system when we eat them, okay? Mushrooms are more closely related to animals than they are plants, genetically speaking. So that is why we make medicines from molds like penicillin, okay? Because their immune systems are closer to ours than they are plants.
What if I cannot afford this timber? Then I can put this thing anywhere and mushroom starts growing.
Yes, so you can put this, you just want to make sure it's off of the ground so that slugs and rodents don't get it. But if you can't afford to make the racks, just keep it elevated. So that's actually not even true. If I were to make a cut right here and I just set it down like this, mushrooms will grow right there, okay? The important part is that we made the garden and that the garden looks good to go, okay? Now, what if I can't get this plastic bag? Okay, well then maybe I find a bucket or maybe I find a bottle. And then as long as the garden is fully tight and poke holes in it, then it will fruit from those holes. And mushrooms, you can grow a massive mushroom cluster like this big from a hole that small, okay? All of it will start very small out of this little, and then the whole cluster can just be popped off, even though that's only like a 1/4 inch or so. Mushrooms are very incredible. They can grow from really small spaces, but we just have to learn the process and be willing to fail over and over and over again. So that's how we get all of this success eventually. Remember, failure is just lessons that you learn and you can apply later, just like in life, okay? Any questions? Well, thank y'all for coming. I appreciate it. If you have any, please feel free.
This one dry.
Huh?
Dry.